Welcome to Widowed Too Soon, where real-life widows and widowers come together to share their stories of survival, faith, and the journey of finding hope in the darkest of times. Whether you're newly widowed or have been on this journey for some time, each week we're here to provide you with inspiration, practical advice, and the reassurance that you are not alone. You were made to not only survive, but thrive. And now here's your host, a woman who has walked this path herself, who finds solace in writing, joy in speaking, and freedom in dancing like nobody's watching. Michelle Bader Ebersole.
Welcome to Widowed Too Soon. This is Michelle Bader Ebersole. I am sitting here all by myself. Well, if you can see in the background, there's my cat Milo. But I do not have a guest today. I'm actually really excited about this episode. So I realized that I had not done my story in over 3 years. That the last time I told I've never done my story in full. The version that you would get if you went back to episode 2 was me 3 years ago, over 3 years ago. And so I was interviewed last week, which was awesome, at my good friends, David and Amy Harity. Their podcast is called At the Table with the Haritys. Check it out on YouTube. Anyways, I was interviewed by them to tell my story, and I was like, wait, why haven't I done this on my podcast in years? Some of you are new, and so it'll be great for you to hear it all in one place. The people that have been around, you might know this, but you might have never, I actually know you've never heard it all together because I've never shared it all together in the stage of life I'm in now. So I'm really excited to share my whole story with you. My whole story, not like my entire life story, but starting with meeting Luke. I'm going to get into that in just a minute. Today is my 20-month anniversary with Joel, and we just bought tickets to Puerto Vallarta for our 2-year anniversary coming up 4 months from today. So I'm super, super excited. If you're new here, I am remarried, and that will be part of the story. Oh, spoiler alert. But if you follow me, you know I'm married again. I post about Joel all the time because I feel so absolutely blessed to have him in my life. You might be a brand new widow and be like, that sounds like disgusting. Like, I don't want to date again. And that's how I was in the very, 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 very beginning when I was a baby widow. I didn't want to date. So anyways, I'm going to be sharing more about how our relationship came to be, lots of things, but I just wanted to share a few things first. If you have been in our Widow Too Soon community page at all, you know it's exploded as of today, and I'm recording this just the day before it comes out. So basically when you're listening to this, we are at over 5,000 members, okay? Like the beginning of October, I think we had just hit 1,000 or 900 or something. So like in a month and a half, I don't know, we have grown like 4,000 people, which is good and bad. It's great because we are reaching so many more people, but people don't even know it's a podcast, and we lost that community feeling. I know I did a whole episode on this last time, so I'm not going to go into depth, but I solved that problem and created a small group. And the only way you can get to this group, it is completely hidden, and the link doesn't even work for more than 2 days. And so I have to keep giving the link out, which I'm good with. I've solved it, and I've created a hidden group called Widowed Too Soon Community Podcast page or group or whatever. And so that is where we now have like 49 or 50 members, and it's actual podcast listeners who I invited, or they reached out to me and asked for the link. So if you would like to be part of this, where we can still keep that community of people who are faith-based and know what's going on with the podcast, please see the link in the show notes, or just send me a message on Facebook, Michelle Bader Ebersole. Just look for me. It's pretty obvious it's me. It'll know you have the right person, and send me a message, and I will give you the current link to the group. Before, I thought I could just give a link, and then we had all kinds of problems. So that's how you do it. I'll put a link to my Facebook profile, or you can just search me on Facebook. I will send you a link. So I created this new group, and it's been awesome. I really like it. So make sure you send me a message if you'd like to be part of that. Okay, I'm ready to get into my story. So I'm going to pretend just like I'm a guest. So tell me what your life was like when you met your late husband. Okay, let me tell you. Just kidding. I don't want to be so cheesy. All right, let me start at the beginning. So I met Luke when I was 14, and that is the truth. We met in high school, Portland Christian High School. I was a freshman, he was a sophomore. We never dated. He dated one of my good friends. I've dated some of his friends, but we just never dated, even though I thought he was really cute. He used to tell me he thought I was really cute in my cheerleading outfit. He was like football player, baseball player, all the things. We had a class together. We had home ec together. We make like the flower babies back in the day. Now they have like things that, technology and the babies cry and all that. No, these are flower bags, right? And we were in the same class for that. I remember talking to him about all my boy trouble. I also remember him rescuing me from a bad date. That's a whole other story. He was a friend. He was a good friend. Thought he was cute. Never really thought anything of it at all. So that's like how we met. He wrote in my yearbook. It's the cutest thing. So my maiden name, I guess it's my maiden name now. My maiden name is Rommel. And he wrote, Rommel, I hope you find a guy someday who can keep a handle on you. Hello, it was him. That's crazy. Yeah, crazy, crazy, crazy. That was like his senior year, my junior year. He wrote that in my yearbook. I still have it. I've showed the kids. It's super cute. So that was like when I met Luke. I was 14, he was 15, and that was it. So a few years later, so during the time when we were apart, about 4 years, he dated someone, I think, for 3-ish years. I dated someone for 3.5 years, thought I was going to marry that person. That's a whole other story. So neither one of us ended up with the person that we were with during that time period we were away, like college years. We came back from college. I was 22. And we had mutual friends because we went to a small private school. And so we still had mutual friends. And I ran into him and I totally liked him. The first time I saw him, I ran into him several times. And he gave me, no, I gave him my number, but then I wouldn't hear from him. He was kind of like, honestly, a player a little bit. He was so handsome and so like just full of life, and really the girls liked him. I mean, everybody liked him. Finally, one day he called me. I was so excited. And this is like before texting. Like honestly, we did not even have texting. We're talking 2002. Yes, 2002-ish. Yeah, 2002 when we started like hanging out again. Which to me is like the other day, but hello, I'm only 29, so whatever. So if you're new here, you're going to have no idea what some of my jokes are about. If you've been around, you'll get it. So anyways, he finally said, let's go out on a date. And it was like our first, we'd always just been through mutual friends, but this was like our first date, right? And we went to see The Bourne Identity, like one of those movies. I think it was the first one. I should look up the year and then I know which one we saw. And I remember him buying me red vines. Apparently people in the South don't have those. I learned from Joel, but they're really good. They're better than, what are the things they have? Twizzlers? No, red vines are better. Anyways, he bought me some of that, my favorite movie snack, and brought it to me. And I was like, you're number one. And he told me later, he's like, who says that? Who says you're number one? It was like my saying for a while. Anyways, that day he told me, I didn't call you because I knew that I could be serious with you, and I wasn't ready, but I'm ready now. So that was our first date, which was August 23rd, 2002. And we started dating. Everything went amazing. He met my family. I met his family. We lived in the same general area, like 30 minutes from each other. So it was like not far. And on December 1st, 2002, he asked me to marry him while we were decorating a Christmas tree. It was very, very sweet. I had bought Luke and Michelle ornaments, and he's like, why don't you put on your ornament? And then I went to my ornament, and there was a ring hanging on it. And he got on one knee. I turned around. He was like down on one knee, and he asked me to marry him. And then the song Santa Baby came on, and we danced. And so every time I hear that song, like literally, it brings me back, and it brings me to tears now. So it's hard for me to listen to, but that was a very good memory. And every time we decorate the tree, even now, even though I'm married again, I still tell the kids the story. I think it's very sweet. So then we got married almost a year to the date. We wanted to do a year, but it cost more to get married on a Saturday than a Friday. So we did Friday. August 22nd, 2003, we got married. We got married at a Queen Anne Victorian mansion in Portland. When I was 14 years old, we went there and looked at Christmas lights because they have it decorated Christmas. And I said, someday I'm going to get married here. So we did. I knew that was going to be the place that I got married. And it was amazing, like thousands of white twinkling lights. We got married in a gazebo. It was August and beautiful, and all our family and friends were there. It was truly magical. And it was such an amazing night that I will never forget and always treasure. It was absolutely beautiful. So then, while we were dating, so let me back it up a little bit. While we were dating, he had noticed a lump in his ankle. And it started to hurt him, but he had already, when we were dating once, gone to the doctor and they were like, it's tendonitis, you're young. He was 25 at that time. Well, he was about then because he was 26 when we got married. So about 26 when we got married. And no, he was 25. 25 when we got married. Okay, so it was about 25 when this happened. But after we got married, it was bothering him more. He had a walking route as a mail carrier. And so he went to the doctor and he would tell the story that they did an x-ray and they were in the other room and they're like, how old is he? Like, what's going on? And he said that is the moment he knew it was bad. And for me, I was young and naive. I was 24 years old, never had like a bad health thing happen to me or someone like super close to me. I mean, as far as like cancer. So it wasn't even in my mind. I was like, okay, he has, I didn't know what to think. I didn't ever think cancer until he told me. I don't think he even told me like how bad he thought it was, but he said that's the moment he knew. Then in January 2004, they did a biopsy. I remember the day. It took forever. And then I don't know how soon after that, they called us and said, you have a very rare bone cancer. It is called mesenchymal chondrosarcoma. So a sarcoma, a bone cancer. I remember just being like totally like, what is happening? Oh, also, I forgot to mention a very important part. We had found out in November, I believe, that we were pregnant with our firstborn, Hayden. We found out we were pregnant. So we were pregnant and then we found out it was cancer. And I remember just being so in shock. Like, what? Like, it didn't compute. And they also told us the chemo regimen they wanted to start and that because of it, we'd never have any more kids. Devastated. Like, I wanted a big family. And spoiler alert, they weren't right. We had 2 more kids. So we have 3 total. And it was just a really, really difficult time. I look back, I thought I was old. Now I'm like, that's so young, like to take this on. And I was angry, honestly. I remember because I was like a newlywed. Okay, so I had a friend. She also married a Luke, the same like a month before me. And her life was totally different. And I remember like it was hard for me to see people I'm a newlywed. Why are we going through cancer? We spent more nights in hospitals than we did at a hotel our first year of marriage. So then it was a big decision. They started chemo and then they were like, sorry, it didn't work. It did not shrink the tumor. And the chemo was horrible. Now the regimen that they would do 5 days, 24 hours a day at the hospital. So I would go stay with him. So I was pregnant. He was going through chemo and he had the best attitude though. He was like always reading his Bible. It's back before like the Bible app, right? So he had his physical Bible there and the nurses would tell him he had such a great attitude and he just was so much light to all those around him, even though he's going through this dark, horrible time. And then we found out, that that the chemo didn't work. And so they said, here's your choices. You can either amputate your leg and remove like all of the cancer, leave a large margin, better chances of survival, or we can do this surgery where we will take the tumor out and you'll wear a special boot for the rest of your life and the cancer could come back much more easily. A lot of praying, a lot of crying, a lot of advising from getting advice from people. We decided together to do the amputation. Now, this was hard. Luke was like all-star sports. Like I'm talking like the best of the best as far as like baseball, especially. And he was very athletic. He lifted weights. So this was a complete life change for him. And it was a very big decision. And I remember the day of his amputation, May 7th, 2004, and walking into the hospital. I remember the night before we'd gone to dinner and he had said, I need you to be strong for me. I need you to be strong. And I was like, okay, I got this. I was 7 months pregnant. Yeah, 7 months pregnant. I remember walking into that hospital. Kind of a funny thing. His mom came into the like pre-op room and took a Sharpie and wrote on his left leg, not this leg. So they didn't mix it up, which was kind of funny. And then I remember sitting with him while he got his epidural. And then I remember as they wheeled him away, I just slid to the floor, like in the hall outside the pre-op room. And so I'm big and pregnant, crying on the wall. And this nurse came up to me. She's like, are you okay? Like, do you have anyone here? And I was like, yeah. But I remember just rocking back and forth and like rubbing my belly and saying, Daddy's okay. Daddy's okay. Daddy's okay. He's going to be okay. Daddy's going to be okay. And then going back out into the room, we had so many people there, like pastors and family members and friends, and just, it was a hard time. I'm not going to lie. Uh, I thought it was the hardest time of my life, but I didn't know what would come later. But at that point in my 25, I was 25 when he had his surgery. In my 25 years, I'd never experienced anything even close to this. And it was extremely stressful. And it was a lot on a pregnant person. um, there's so much with that too. So he got out of the amputation and he told the story about how he felt like paralyzed, like he couldn't move. And then as, you know, it was probably from the anesthesia. And as he started getting feeling back, he was so thankful that he'd only lost a leg and that he hadn't been paralyzed. But it was very hard. I remember walking in the first time to see him without his leg. I didn't know how he would be, but he was in great spirits and thankful that he was not paralyzed. But that night was torture. There's this thing called phantom pain where your limbs feel like the nerves are still firing. So he had lots of different phantom pain sensations, like feeling like his leg was on fire or crushed or a nail through it. Like there were so many he would tell me about. And that night it was very bad. And we learned later, like the amount of pain you're in the first night has something to do with like the rest of your life with the phantom pain. And the nurses refused more pain medication. And I asked for it for him, but they're like, nope, we had to get the doctor's permission. The doctor was not there. The next day, the doctor was like, you should have given it to him, to the nurses. And unfortunately, he, for the rest of his life, had phantom pain. Anyways, I remember listening to Enya and just crying and crying and crying because he was in so much pain and there was nothing I could do, and feeling so empty and broken and like, God, where are you? Like, where are you in this? Like, all my friends who just got married, they had nothing like this going on. And I was almost angry. I remember going to work, I was a teacher, and seeing all my coworkers and all these people and like, why is it me? Like, why am I going through it, you know? But I was young and I didn't really understand. Now I always say, if God allowed it, I can accept it. If God allowed it, I can accept it. And in the beginning, I didn't really know that. Like I wasn't embracing that. So he had his leg amputated and started the process of learning to walk again with a prosthetic leg, which is a very long process. There was a lot of crying, a lot of tears of him learning, as it's a whole thing. And there's all the pain and like so many things that go in, like limb pain, and your leg is always changing sizes and you have to go get fitted all the time. And it's so expensive. Like there's so many things with having a prosthetic leg, and insurance doesn't cover it. So it was like 10,000 a limb. I think one time we had double coverage. And so it covered most of it, but most of the time we still had to pay a lot of money. And he went back to work for a little while as a mail carrier. Instead of a walking route, he went to a driving route, but it was still too much. And so I think it was maybe a year later, he went on disability and he was on it for the rest of his life, which that's a whole other hard issue, because I think it's so important for a man to have his job and his purpose. And I think that was always hard for him that he didn't have that anymore. So life went forward, and every year on May 7th, we would celebrate one more year cancer free because we tried to look at the amputation day as getting the cancer out because it was only in his ankle. It was nowhere else, which was a complete miracle in itself. It had not gone anywhere else in his body. And so that was a complete miracle. So every single year we would celebrate. Now, along these years, he had lots of other health issues, diabetes, cirrhosis. He almost died from that, which was horrible. I mean, just so many things. I could go on and on and on and on. The kids saw the ambulance come so many times. They were used to it. I mean, it was just, yeah. So we had two other kids. When Hayden was, I think it's 21 or 22 months, 20 months, somewhere in there, Haley was born. And then when she, about the same a distance apart, then Peyton was born. So at one time I had three kids, 3.5 and younger. That was a lot of work. And all of, Luke's things. So it was just a lot of work. But life went forward. I worked as a teacher some of the time. I've always been an entrepreneur, so I've done lots of different network marketing companies and different ways to make money. I've taught in China from home. I've taught online all over. I've always trying to find a way to bring in the money that we needed. Life was good, but money was tight. And, Luke was never exactly the same again. It changed him from the day he had amputation. And it was a hard life. It was a very hard life for him as far as like physically, with the phantom pain. And then, there were so many other issues over the years that just really were difficult. And it was hard. It was really hard. I didn't know, because all you know is all you know, right? And so I didn't know that in a marriage, like a lot of times, like you go do all these things together, because Luke and I couldn't, because he was sick most of the time. 16 and a half out of 17 years that we were married, he was sick. And so we never really got to experience like what it'd be like to do all these things together. Not that he didn't want to, his body just wouldn't let him. And it was good. Like life was good but hard. I mean, we had so much joy when the kids were born and going to the activities. He absolutely loved watching the boys play baseball and going to Haley's Journey Theater where she was singing and acting, and he supported all the kids stuff. He couldn't always come because of how he's feeling, but he tried. And so then so we had a lot of life, a lot of things, without getting into every single little detail. Just know that we went to the hospital so many times. Let me just back it up. So it was probably 5 or 6 years before he died when he had his cirrhosis, and he hated me telling about cirrhosis because people think that's an alcoholic, but they said it was probably from the chemo he got when he was young. He got so much chemo. So he had to have a blood he was bleeding out so much blood. We had to take him to the hospital 3 times in 3 months. He turned yellow. We had a blood transfusion. It was a really, really scary time. And he had a 50% chance of making it. Hallelujah. His liver recovered. It's a true miracle that he recovered from that, but it was very scary. Like, I didn't know if he was going to make it. And so that was one of the times. And then, just so many, there was always something with him, like literally always a health issue. And then we went on a family vacation to his aunt and uncle had a cabin that we would go at and go stay in the woods. And we were playing baseball at this park, just, us and the kids. And he fell. He swung at the ball and then he fell and he landed on what he thought was his liver, and it was hurting. And he thought, okay, maybe I need to go to the doctor and have my liver checked. It's acting up, like it doesn't feel right. And he was starting to cough a lot, having trouble breathing. And when they did the scan of the liver, they saw a little bit of the lungs and they saw cancer. So they had to, but I don't think the first scan they told us, they're like, we need to scan the lungs now. And at the scan of the lungs, they found tumors in his lungs. And we were shocked. I was shocked, completely shocked. I think at the time there were 2 or 3, maybe. And they said it's the same. So they did a biopsy and it's the same cancer. It was not lung cancer. It was bone cancer in his lungs. And I remember talking to the pulmonologist, the lung doctor, how did this happen? He's like, well, there must have been some of those cancer cells that lay dormant in his body for 13 years or until we found out about it and they decided to go to his lungs. We always knew if it came back, it would be in his lungs and it would be terminal. That's what we had heard. But we passed the 10-year mark. So I thought we were good. I thought we were golden. Like, oh my gosh, you've been cancer free. Like we would celebrate it every May 7th. You're cancer free. You're cancer free. And then it came back. And I remember like, no. But I was very positive. I was very optimistic. I remember when he told me, we saw the scans before the doctor called us. By that time we knew like what to look for. And so we could read it and we knew. And so we're like, we got to tell the kids at this time, I believe this is what it was. I got to remember their ages exactly. I think because it was 3 years, he was 12. Okay. I think they were 9, 11, and 13, I believe. Something like that. Or 10, 12, and 14. I don't know. They were young. And I remember sitting them down and saying, so side note, I wrote a book the year after Luke's cancer called In Sickness and in Health. And it was all about our first year of marriage and everything we went to. We were like, people complain that their first year of marriage is so hard. Like, what the heck? Like, they don't even know hard. So I wrote a book called In Sickness and in Health. So the kids had all read it, at least the older two. They all knew about Luke's first cancer. We had told them. They knew. I mean, they knew why their dad didn't have a leg, but they never saw their dad ever, not once, without a leg. With his leg there. They knew the story. And so we just were very optimistic. We're going to see what we can do. Luke had said, I'll never do chemo again. But when it came down to it, there was nothing. There was no studies. There was nothing we could do. It was like, well, we got to do something. So after talking to the kids, we started him on chemo again. This time it was different. It was not 24 hours a day. There were 2 different kinds. Like one of them we'd go and we'd stay like a few hours. And then there was one where he'd take it home. He'd take it like chemo to go, I guess. Take it with you in kind of like a little bag. And I remember on his first chemo, I actually put together a video for him. I had people send me videos to encourage him, and I showed it to him when he did his first chemo. I'd love to find those videos again. I got them somewhere. Anyways, started chemo. Long story short, didn't work. Again, there were a few times like when it was like, oh, it's stable, but there were never times when it shrunk and then it started to grow. And the ones in his lungs grew so much that one night Hayden was hugging him goodnight and he felt something on his back. And I went in there and looked at it, and it was actually the back of his lungs. There was a tumor coming out. I have a picture of it somewhere. It was like the first time that I visually saw what was there. And I remember how hard that was. It was like, oh my gosh, like it's the first time I can see, besides seeing scans and stuff, I can actually see. And the first time the kids could see. And he used to cough constantly. I still get very triggered with coughs. I just remember like being in bed and hearing him coughing and like being so worried and like begging God to heal him. During this time, taking teenagers through grief, it was so different. Like last time I was pregnant. I didn't have kids outside my womb to talk to and lead through. And I had this lady, she was a friend of a friend, and she reached out to me. I didn't know her. And I apologize if anyone's ever done this to you. She said, you have to tell your kids that he's going to be healed no matter what. I was like, I'm not doing that because I don't want to set them up for hating God. She's like, no, it's about your belief. You have to believe 100%. And like, it's a sin issue. And I said, I know someone who just died. Well, you don't know her sin issues. She was telling me that people died. It was their sin issue. I am so sorry if someone has said that to you because that is 100% not true. Oh, don't even get me started down that road. Anyways, I told the kids, Daddy is going to be healed no matter what, but we don't know if it's here or in heaven. And so we prayed every single night, please heal Daddy and please make it here on earth. I remember praying that like I'd go in the boys' room, play it with them. I'd go in Haley's room, pray it with her. And it was a hard time because this time I wasn't the only one seeing the effects of the chemo. It was just me before. This time the kids, I remember they would hear him throw up and they'd have to see how sick he was. And it was heartbreaking watching them watching him. So it was completely different for me this time having kids. And it was a whole different journey because I'm trying to be strong for them, but I've got my own stuff going on and I'm trying to, we're at a busy time in life anyways. And I remember the day when the doctor called me. I was in the Walmart parking lot about to go in and get jeans for Peyton for something he needed the next day. I don't know. And I'm in the parking lot and I get a call from the doctor. And I said, and I think he told me that the cancer grew. And I said, okay, I've never asked this before, but how much time do you think he has left? And he said 6 to 9 months. Side note, they were wrong. I think it was 11 months. But I remember walking into that store like and on a different planet. I don't know if this has happened to you where you're like, oh my gosh, these people don't even know my husband's dying. My husband's dying. And they're just like walking through it and just like being in a daze kind of. And I remember quoting in my head over and over and over, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Psalm 23. And just saying that I will walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. And just saying that over and over and over and over. And that was hard, like actually hearing somebody say it. We got to do some fun things. There's this organization that grants last wishes to terminal adults. Now, there's a ton of them for kids, but a friend found this one for me that's for adults. Oh, I can't remember the name right now. I'm going to remember it in a minute. Dream something. I don't know. They did this wish for us, and we'd never been on a plane together, like the 5 of us, and we'd never been to Disneyland. And so we got to go to Disneyland. And I remember we had to have a doctor sign that he had 6 months or less left to live, which was really hard. And I'm like telling Luke, like, this doesn't mean it's true. It's just a hoop we have to jump through. And we went to Disneyland, and it was an amazing, beautiful time. Now, there were some really hard moments because he was throwing up and only got to go with us one day. But there were some beautiful moments. We have like this really cool video. In fact, I'll see if I can link it or something. Where he's passing through the gates, like no, we're in front of the Snow White Castle or whatever, and he's on his scooter because that was the best way for him to get around. And he puts his arms in the air and he goes, "I made it, world! I made it!" And it was just such a precious moment. And we have so many beautiful pictures, and I'm so thankful we got that trip. Even though there were parts of it that were really hard, that was something really beautiful that the kids will always treasure and remember. And we got to go to like Oregon Duck games. He's a huge Oregon Duck fan. We got to go like get a special tour, go down on the field. Like, God blessed us with so many amazing memories. Like, I just put things out on Facebook and people would gift us. Okay, listen to what they did for Haley's 14th birthday. So that's a whole other story. It's COVID, right? May of 2020 is Haley's birthday, May 5th. And we're all shut down for COVID. And I remember Luke saying, "I don't want to die in COVID." I'm like, "You're not. It's going to be like a few weeks." I had no clue. And he also said, I don't want to die when there's no football, because he was a big football fan. Because I guess like everything shut down, all the teams. And I put it out there, and somebody knew somebody at the headquarters of Red Robin, which Red Robin was Luke's favorite restaurant and Haley's. And they came to us, like the Red Robin, all dressed up. A bunch of employees, they asked us what we want. They took an order for me and my whole family, and my parents and his parents, and they came walking down. We were having a COVID birthday, right? We were outside, and they came walking down the street, and we have these beautiful memories and pictures of them there, and Hayden and Luke with Haley, and it was just so, so beautiful. The things that were done for us, how people poured out their love. Getting him on hospice was difficult because nobody wants to hear you're on hospice. But I was like, you know what? It's VIP care. We no longer have to go get the medicine. They bring it to us. The nurse comes to us, and we end up having a really special bond with this amazing Christian nurse. And it was a beautiful thing. I was like, well, the best thing is if you do well, like, if you get better, we just graduate out. They reevaluate every 6 months. So there's no harm in doing it. So I'm so thankful. I think he was on it 8 months, which most people from my hospice nurse, she says they're on it like a couple days or a week. And I'm like, what? It's like the best thing ever. But people don't want to get on it because they think they're going to die right then. But we had great care, even like through COVID and everything. Okay. Wow. I think I might make this into a two-parter because it's a long, like, I haven't even gotten to, like, I have so much more to share, and it's actually really emotionally draining. I have a widow's event tonight, Friendsgiving. I'm very excited about it. But I'm feeling like already very emotionally drained. So I think I'm just going to get through a little bit more, and then we'll do part 2 next week. So, just a lot of hard things, a lot of good things. This is another one of my favorite stories. I will link to this because I think it's so beautiful. I've shared it on TikTok. So, about a month before Luke died. So, well, let me back it up. So, years ago, I had gotten the diamond had fallen out of my wedding ring. And we did not, my original wedding ring, like from when we got married, we did not have the money to replace it. I got another cheaper ring and we just put that one in a drawer. Someday we'll replace it. So he comes out of the office and holding I didn't even know where it was. He had it, my old ring, and said, I want to get a new diamond for this. I was like, okay, why now? He goes, we just got the stimulus check. You guys remember that? Back in the day when they did stimulus checks. And I was like, okay. Then it's like, it's COVID. Absolutely no stores are open. But I sent out a message to someone who worked at a jewelry store, or she heard my story, or somehow we got connected. And she opened the store for us. Shout out to Eric Runyon Jewelers in Vancouver, Washington. And she opened the store. It was like one of my favorite days ever. It was our last date we ever had. It was beginning of May. And I was like, I feel like we're movie stars because it was just me and him. And we looked at diamonds and he picked one out and he bought it for me and had it put into my original wedding band. And it was just really fun. Then we walked around the waterfront and it was just, he wasn't feeling well, just stayed a little while and went home, and it was beautiful. And then it was ready a couple weeks later, or I don't know how long exactly. And it was COVID. The kids were home. They were bored. They're like, we want to go with you to pick it up. So we all went, which is a total God thing now because they're part of this beautiful moment. And we got there, and for some reason, COVID related, I think we couldn't go in the store. So she gave it, brought us out by these rocks. It was really beautiful, and gave it to him to give to me. And so he presented like it's the cutest thing. He opens it up and gives it to me, and I'm all excited. And it was just such a beautiful, beautiful moment. And I had been nervous about, like, oh, should I accept this? Like, this is a big deal. And I know I'm not going to wear the wedding ring forever. I didn't tell him that, but I knew that I probably wasn't going to wear it forever. But my nurse was like, you know what? This is a big deal to him. It's one of his last wishes. This is what people do. I'm like, okay. And what's really cool now is obviously I don't wear it now. I'm remarried, but it's saved for Haley. And the kids were there when he presented it to me. So it's very special. And so Haley will get to have the ring that her dad picked out for me. So I think it's really, really super special. So that was May 13th, 2020. And when we were there, this woman took a family picture for us, and that actually ended up being our last family picture. And I have it up on the wall downstairs. And I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that she did that. I'm so thankful that she took that picture because I had no idea that was going to be our last picture. I mean, I probably had some idea, but I didn't think about it at the time. And it was just just something sweet. Like he was feeling horrible that day. I remember thought he was going to throw up on the way, but he wanted to do this for me. And it means the world to me that he did that. Now we get to the really hard part, and I'll probably be ending it after this and pick up next week with the next part. So, May 22nd, 2020, we had a great day. So, during COVID, we really enjoyed family time. Now, Luke didn't get up until about 4 in the afternoon. He just had to sleep all the time. He had cancer growing in his body. He was tired. But once he got up, we were like watching family shows and movies and making cookies and popcorn. Like we treated it like every night was a Friday night because nobody had to go anywhere. And so we have a lot of sweet memories for those few months of COVID when he was alive. And that last day was really special. The kids were outside playing. I sat by him a lot. I felt something inside of me say, which is God, just stay by his side, stay by his side. And like a couple days before that, he was crying and he said, I need to tell you, thank you for being such a good wife. It was so beautiful. It's like he knew, but he didn't know, but he was saying all these things, like just little things here and there. One day he said, he was crying and he said, I'm never going to get to meet our grandkids. And that was extremely hard. It's still something hard for me and for the kids. Anyways, that last day was beautiful. I remember I was writing my book, Paralyzed Joy, my fiction book, and just sitting next to him he was watching TV. He was watching that show, Deadliest Catch, where they are in Alaska and they're catching things or wherever they're at. He loved that show. Ice Truckers, I think he was watching that. Anyways, just watching his shows. And kids were playing outside. It was just a good day. And then we would always watch something at night. And we watched, I think it was not a movie, it was a show the very last night. It was a game show where if they got the answer wrong, they'd have to go spinning in this like ride. And he called it the Upside Down Show. I don't even remember what it was called. We had popcorn. We did that. When I went to hug the boys goodnight, they shared a room. For some reason, never had ever happened ever. But that night, our dog and Haley and the boys and Luke and me all did a family hug. We had never done one ever. It just happened, which now is so beautiful. And it was a beautiful moment. We hugged together. Kids went to bed, and he was just out watching. Like sometimes he'd stay out in the living room watching TV, and something told me again, go to him. And I said, why don't you come to bed with me? We can still watch a show, but I just want to be with you. He came back into the room, and here's another thing to know about Luke. He'd never, ever, ever, ever asked me to make him food. He liked making his own food. He just said, do you think, and he did this, put his finger on his lip like he did when he was thinking. He's like, do you think you could make me a grilled cheese sandwich? And I was like, yes, I'd love to make you a sandwich. I went and made him a sandwich, brought it back to him. He ate it, and we watched, I don't remember the name of the show, just some silly show. And then we went to bed, and it was the same as every night. I would wake up a lot, like, is he breathing? I don't want him to die in his sleep. And the hospice nurse had come that day also. And she told him, we're probably going to need a hospital bed soon. He was like, nope, what can I do? She's like, your legs are atrophying, your leg, he had one. What can I do? And she said, like, all these calf exercises. So he did a ton of them that day. And she told me, because I walked out with her, how long do you think he has? And she said, maybe a month to 6 weeks. I'm not sure. And I told the kids, I was always keeping them updated so they knew. And we went to bed. And at about 4 or 5 in the morning, I woke up to the lights in the hall. So he was still fully functioning, and one of his biggest fears was that we'd have to change him and take care of him and feed him and all those things. So he was fully functioning. This was now May 23rd, 2020. And I'm like, what's going on? When I saw the light on, he's like, my calf hurts. It must be like, those calf exercises I did. It really hurts. Could you get me a heating pad? I got him a heating pad. We tried that. could you get me ice? We tried that. It was still hurting him. And then he started, like, I thought he was having a panic attack. And he used to take lorazepam to help him calm down. And he called it his chill pills. So he said, chill pill, put under my tongue, put under my tongue. And so I put under his tongue. And then he just, like, he couldn't breathe. It was really horrible. My biggest fear was to be the one alone with him. So I called hospice. My nurse wasn't there. I talked to somebody else and he told me to put oxygen on him. So I did that. And then he said, it's time to wake up your kids. Like, this is probably it. I'll never forget walking into Haley's room and saying, it's time to say goodbye to Daddy. And she said, no, it's not time. Like, yeah, it is. But somehow God had given me a supernatural peace. And we all got in there and I wasn't crying. I wasn't flustered. I was totally peaceful. Totally God. Called my mother-in-law, called my mom, and we just had this really beautiful time with him. By the time the kids got in there, they never saw him suffer, which I'm so thankful for. For me, for a long time, those memories were hard to get rid of, but I was so thankful that they did not see him suffer. We sat with him on the bed, and it's kind of a blur, but there's things that stick out to me. I remember his mom coming and singing to him. I remember Haley singing You Are My Sunshine, which was her song with her dad. I remember saying to him, you're gonna meet my grandparents today. You're gonna hear well done, my good and faithful servant. And this whole time his eyes were just open but fixed in the corner. And I'm gonna fast forward and then come back. So no, I just want you to think about that for a minute. His eyes were in the corner, and then I'll go to that part in a minute. But that part's really important to my story. And I don't know how long. I think we were with him about an hour, and my hospice nurse had given me her personal number. So I called her and she was already awake. She said, God tells her, like, she knew. Because I was like, she was on vacation. I'm like, how are you awake? And anyways, we FaceTimed with Luke. And she asked me to give him Halidol, which was made to relax him. He would get that, would help relax him. And it was like in a syringe, put it under his tongue, give him this medicine. And the kids told me later that when I did that, they thought that medicine was to make him better, like that he was going to get better. And I had to tell him, no, it was just to relax him so he could go peacefully. And he kept trying to talk. He kept saying, I'm like, I know you love us. I think he was trying to say, I love you. So I think that was actually his last word is I. And it's, like I said, it's a blur. Then we played the song I Can Only Imagine, and during that song he stopped breathing, and then the hospice nurse came in and said he's gone. And then that's when we all I didn't lose it yet, but just remembering my kids crying, just remembering my kids, they were 12, 14 and 15 at the time, and just remembering them wailing and no daddy, no, like, still breaks my heart. 4 years later, still breaks my heart thinking about them. And they said goodbye. They all kissed him goodbye. And when they left the room, I just laid on the bed with his body, held his cold hand. And I lost it. And my mom was there with me. And it was the single most heartbreaking moment of my whole life. To watch the soul leave the body of someone you love is something that cannot be explained. And I was left completely and utterly shattered. Although I knew it was coming, my hospice nurse told me, no matter how much you prepare, you're not prepared. And it was also a shock because he kept complaining about his leg and what was going on. And I found out that he actually died of a blood clot. He didn't die of cancer. It was a blood clot that started in his calf and either went to his heart or his lungs, and he didn't survive. But I know for him it was the best because he wouldn't have wanted to slowly deteriorate. But I was in shock because I thought we had more time. And just that moment, it's just so surreal. And now I want to fast forward to 2 months later because it has to do with this. I went to a grief retreat and we did this activity, and they said, I want you to ask Jesus where he was in your darkest moment. So I had a vision. It was so real. It was this exact same thing, like his deathbed. Like I had a vision that God closed the door. So Hayden said he was awake, but he never saw his dad suffering. And so that was like God that somehow closed the door so Hayden didn't see. And then I experienced the entire scene again as if I was Luke, as if I was in his body. And the first thing I felt as him, I felt the thought. I felt peace, first of all. I can't explain. It's more peace than I've ever felt my entire life. I felt peace covering my body. And then the first thought that came into my head was, I don't feel any pain. And Luke was always in pain. And the second thought was, I'm okay to leave my family, because that was his biggest fear. And everything was like, I don't want to leave you. And in this vision, I felt like more peace than I'd ever felt in my entire life. And I was looking up and to the right, which is where Luke was looking. And in that corner was Jesus, just like kind of like sitting there. And so I know that Luke was seeing him. And when the song I Can Only Imagine ended, he followed Jesus. I followed Jesus in the vision, but which was him. And that's where it ended. And I believe God gave me that vision for many reasons. One was because I was in such agony, wondering, what was he thinking? Because he couldn't talk. What was he thinking all that time? And two, because I'm supposed to share this with you. I know there's some of you out there who probably wondered the same thing. What was my loved one feeling? What were they seeing? And I'm here to tell you that God has given me peace, that it's very peaceful. It's not scary. And I pray that that helps you in your journey. It's so interesting that talking about this can bring me right back. It's been 4 years, and I am usually almost 4.5, actually. I'm usually pretty put together about everything and doing really well overall. But when I talk in depth about Luke's death, it always brings me back. But as we know, what we feel, God can heal. And I believe God has healed me, but there's still the raw moments. And maybe it's because I'm supposed to share them with you so rawly still, that still hurt. It still hurt when I talk about them. So I'm going to probably end it here soon because there's so much more to my story. Oh my goodness. But I'm so tired. Like I feel so drained. And, so life from there, I'll just get started and then we'll continue it next week. Was incredibly hard, obviously. I didn't even know what to do. I actually wanted to read you something. So as you guys know, most of you know, I am writing a book called Widow Goals, Steps to Finding Peace When You Lose Your Spouse. And I wanted to read a little bit from the first chapter that just kind of explains the way I felt the day after he died. So this is from Widow Goals. I remember waking up the morning after my husband passed away in utter agony as suddenly the memories of my husband's last breath and the sounds of my kids saying, "No, Daddy, it's not time," came flooding into my mind. I began to wail as the pain was too intense for me to keep inside. It couldn't be true. My husband of almost 17 years couldn't be gone. The father of my children could not have been taken away from them so soon. Even though I had witnessed his death with my eyes, my mind couldn't comprehend it. The weight of it all was too much to bear. I rolled over and looked at my daughter. The tears flowed more intensely as the cold reality set in that my daughter at age 14 was fatherless. All I wanted to do was go back to sleep, to escape the nightmare of my reality. With the sounds of my cries, both my sister-in-laws came running into my room. I'm so sorry, Shell, Jessica said, rubbing my back as I lay face down with my head in the pillow. I could feel the bed shake as my daughter cried by my side, my sweet baby, crying the tears of a broken heart, the tears for her daddy, the tears too deep to be explained. The years of father-daughter dances and dates would now be a bittersweet memory of the past. The one more goodnight kiss and one more I love you, Daddy, never to be heard again. My heart ached with a deeper pain than I had ever felt before. In my 41 years of life, I thought I knew my fair share of pain, but absolutely nothing compared to the intensity of the pain that I felt at that moment. The hole so deep and dark, I felt it might swallow me into its depths where I would live forever. And then I go on to talk about other things, but I just wanted to read that to just kind of explain what I felt like the next day. But spoiler alert, God has healed my heart and I am doing great. And I think it's okay to go back and revisit the pain because there is purpose in our pain. And by me being able to be so real and raw with you guys, I'm hoping it's helping you. You're not alone if you're feeling these feelings. And I just want to encourage you to share your story. Not only like share it with someone safe and trusted, but if you ever want to share it on here, let me know. I'm always looking for people that want to share their story. So much happened after that. Let me just share a teeny tiny bit more so we can end it on kind of a good note, but there's so much more to my story. Those first few months were really dark. Like I remember just laying on the floor in a puddle basically and saying, Jesus, help me, Jesus, help me. And he did. He gave me the peace that passes all understanding. There's no way in earthly words to explain how he comforted me. There's no possible way. And so I want to encourage you, just say that, Jesus, help me, and he will come and he will help you. I think that's where I'm going to end it. Like I am so mentally exhausted right now, but there's so much more to come in the story. Next time we'll talk about just like what life was like, how things started getting better, my ministry, meeting Joel, and where I'm at today. So we have that to look forward to next week. I thought I'd record it all and then just split it up, but I'm so tired and I have so much to do before tonight. So anyways, I appreciate each one of you for being part of this community and just taking this journey with me. Some of you have been here like the whole time. You know, it's been a whole, we've been all over in this adventure of podcasting from the bad sounds and quality and different ways that we did this and, you know, having a co-host, now doing it on my own and just all the different stuff. And so I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate the community you've made. And I love the way you guys encourage me because, like I said on that last podcast, like podcasting can be lonely. And I wonder if I'm making a difference sometimes, but I am. I know it. So please, please, please send me a message if you would like to be included in our Widowed Too Soon podcast community, the small group of people who actually listen to the podcast. The other one, they don't know. But everybody's welcome if they find it. I just want to keep it for people who they could only know about it if they listened, because I want podcast listeners part of the podcast community. And, you know, give it 5 stars, bing, 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 all the things. If you liked it, rate and review. Please apply to be a guest. All the stuff will be in the show notes. And I think that's it. I am done talking. Okay. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Widowed Too Soon with Michelle Bader Ebersole. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, rate and review. And we'd also love for you to join our Widowed Too Soon community on Facebook. See you next time.